Hi, Massey family. This is Cassandra, and we are still doing our Golden Series. Really appreciating our older family members, learning some of the history and things that they went through. And today I have the absolute pleasure of having Delores D. Thomas, Massey Thomas. How you doing, D?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Very good. I'm so glad that I was able to finally get you on.
Okay.
All right, well, let's go ahead. Tell us about yourself and about your family and where you live.
Okay. I am the oldest daughter of Walter and Julia Massey, and I have had 7 siblings. And my oldest brother is Walter, and he lives in Aurora, Colorado. And Kenny, which y'all know. And then next was Ella, and we called her BB. She's passed on. And after her was Barbara, and Barbara Stewart, and she lives in Richmond, Virginia. Well, it's Barbara Stewart Powell, because she remarried. And then it was my youngest sister, Denise. She passed on. And then it was Michael. He lives in Richmond/Petersburg. He was one of the main person that took the lead in taking care of my mother before she passed. The first of this year, she was 101. And my youngest brother, Curtis, and Curtis died this year as well on May 27th. He was 60 years old, and he lived in Washington, D.C.
He did.
Yeah.
We actually don't live too far from where he's at, and I really hate that I didn't get a chance to. We always talked about having lunch, and we never got around to doing it.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell us, where did you grow up, and what was your home like?
All of us were born, with the exception of Ella, the one with BB. She was born in Yokohama, Japan. But the rest of us all were born, and we lived in the same house. We were all born at Fort Lee, Virginia, and we lived at 314 North Carolina Avenue in Petersburg, Virginia.
Okay. Wow.
And my father was in the military, and unlike the traditional way military family tend to be, we were fortunate to stay put at Fort Lee, with the exception of one time my dad had to go to France. And we stayed in Petersburg, so we did not go with him. Originally, we were supposed to have gone to Alaska, but because Julia and Walter Massey decided to have all them children, they did not have housing big enough for all of these Masseys. And we would have had to live in the dormitories away from home, from them, to get our schooling, and then come back. And that was not going to fly. So we stayed in Petersburg. And my dad ended up not finishing his tour in France because Amy, who was one of the people, one of the persons in Savannah that raised my dad after his mom died when Daddy was very young.
Okay.
So he ended up coming back from France on a hardship tour, hardship situation, and ended up, going back to Fort Lee and stayed there until he retired. I believe my daddy had 34, 36 years in the military, in the Army.
Oh, wow. That is amazing.
Yes. When you count all the years of the military service of my siblings, cousins, and relatives, we are still clocking over 135, 36 years, because there are still some immediate relatives that are still in the military.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing.
Yes. The only branch we did not go in was the Coast Guard. And no one was in the National Guard. But I figured that the reason why no one went into the Coast Guard is because we were not good swimmers. So although we had somebody in the Navy, but he was on a ship as opposed.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Wow. That is really amazing. What was your favorite place? I know you guys stayed there. Did you ever travel anywhere, though?
Didn't do a lot of traveling back in the day because segregation. And I remember that we took a trip to Washington, D.C. That's the only earlier trip that I remember that we stayed at a hotel, segregated, of course, Washington, D.C., segregated. And it would have been in the late 50s, the very earliest of the 60s. And the hotel, the bellhop came. It was hot, of course, in summer, and we had asked called for ice or called the desk, and the guy who came to bring us the ice, he was drunk as a skunk, child. He came in there and went into the closet.
No. Oh, man.
Yeah, when he was leaving, he went in the closet instead of going out the door. But anyhow, that was one of my memories. And the other memory I had of when Mommy was pregnant, and I don't remember which it would have been before the 60s, because Mommy had her last baby in Curtis in 59. So we may have been 50. It may have been Michael. He was born in 56. Or she may have been pregnant with Curtis, which would have been the summer of 59. But at any rate, whichever pregnancy, because it was like a regular routine, she would announce at the table, I'm pregnant, So like the first few announcements we were really excited. It was like, oh, let us tell you what you're about to tell us. So it got a little old after a while. But anyhow, we had ordered liver. Because it wasn't a whole lot of different things on the menu, and what was on the menu you asked for, and they said, no, we don't have it, we're out. So we ended up with, I had liver. Well, the liver didn't taste right. And, of course, somebody's paying for this meal, and it wasn't me. So I'm told I got to eat it. You don't waste, and I've never been a wasteful person anyway. But anyhow, that liver did not taste right. And when my mother scraped the gravy off of that liver was green underneath.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was a black hotel, back in the day. But that's my memory of a vacation to Washington, D.C.
Okay, in D.C.
Yeah.
Well, what were some of your? Go ahead.
Okay. So the other trips that we made, we went a couple of times into New York to see Aunt Laura and Grandpa, and we also went to New York to see Grandpa in New York, and Savannah, Georgia, to see Annie. And Betty and Shirley I met for the first time, and her sister, I think we called her sister, Shirley's sister. I don't remember her name. Seemed like it may have been Mamie or something, but I'm not sure now.
Okay. Oh, wow. So you did get a chance to travel to Georgia.
Yes. segregated. Couldn't use bathrooms and the filling stations. It was one filling station company, and I want to say Amoco. It may have been Exxon, but I don't remember which one. But it was one of the first that integrated in the South and said that they did not discriminate, and you got full service like everybody else. And I remember that. And Daddy would get angry because he, being in the military, he had a sticker on his car that indicated that he was a military. And here I'm fighting for this country, representing our, the military, and here you still treating me no different than, segregation trumped the fact he was in the military.
Wow.
But we had a hole in the floor of the car that we traveled in, and that became I think it's called a porta toilet. So you sat over the hole and peed as we went down.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a new one for me. I never heard of that one.
Well, not everybody had a hole. It wasn't designed to have a hole. It rusted and had a hole.
Okay. And don't get it twisted. But it served a very good purpose. Wow. Okay.
And if you had to do number 2, which you got fussed at if you had to, because there was no place to do number 2 and no toilet, so you had to pull on the side of the road and get on the passenger side so you won't be doing your business on the driver's side to the highway and bend over and do what you had to do.
Okay.
So we tended to be constipated when we traveled.
Especially with all those kids, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Do you remember much about your grandparents?
Only Grandpa.
Okay.
Because Daddy's mom died when he was a little boy, so I did get to meet Grandpa Jesse in Brooklyn, New York, back in the early 60s. Well, I had met him before, but I went and visited Lois, and I worked in New York and when I graduated from high school, so I got to spend a little more time with Grandpa then.
Okay.
Go to his church and walk over to where he lived and that type of thing.
What type of person was he?
Not very talkative. I remember that he tight on that money.
Tight on his money.
Yeah. He had come down to Petersburg a couple of times, and his wife, and we call her Grandma Vi, I believe. Her name, because it's been so many years ago. But anyway, she would send money, to give to us, and Grandpa would, have this selective absent-mindedness about that money that she had put in that pocket, and we were hip to that amnesia, so we asked him about that. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Tell us, what were some of your favorite things as a teen? I usually ask, what's your favorite food and what's your favorite song? So, what's your favorite food growing up and your favorite song?
Oh, favorite food. I don't remember that I had. I like. Back then, my mother didn't. Oh, my favorite was an apple pie that Grandpa's wife made, and she gave me her secret recipe. And and I've shared the recipe because, but she told me she had never told anyone her secret. to her
Wow.
apple pie. And they were, girl, we would fight over it like scrap, like dogs in the alley, child. We wanted who was going to get the last piece. And Mommy and Daddy tried to give us, because it was, usually we only had one pie and cutting it up all the many times, but they made ours extra thin so they would have a little more for them later. But anyhow,
right.
she told me that the secret to her pies is that she always used 3 different apples in her pie. And I've used that recipe to this day.
Oh, wow.
She said always have a tart apple, what she would say a green apple, not a green delicious apple, not that soft apple, but a Granny Smith. And there's a one in Virginia, I forget the name, it's a green apple. It's not a Granny Smith. It may be a Cortland apple. I don't remember now. But she said always have a tart apple. And the second, she always used Macintosh. It's her second apple. Okay. And the third apple, as long as it was a red apple, that was more on a sweet side, because the Macintosh has a little tartness to it as well, but it's mostly sweet. And the green apple, and then that red apple, and I'm trying to think. I would use that third apple depending on what was available, in terms of the third apple. Never use a delicious apple. They were too mushy. A firm red apple that was sweet. So, because apples here in the Midwest, then what would have been, in Petersburg at the time, varied. But anyway, and always use butter. She said, you got to use butter and use pure vanilla and sugar. And those pies were off the hook, and I had people used to ask me to bake that apple pie for their birthdays and stuff. So I'm going to ask
you to bake it for the family reunion.
Yes. They are delicious. Delicious.
Okay. That is awesome. What about your favorite song? What was your favorite song growing up?
Oh, goodness. It was so many beautiful songs back in the day when you think about them boyfriends and all that kind of stuff. Mary Wells was one of my favorite singers. So, so stuff that she made I really, really liked. The Temptations were out back in the mid-'60s, early '60s. So it was more of who the artists were, as opposed to a particular song. Right now, I don't remember one that really stand out, but Mary Wells and the Shirelles, and then when Diana Ross and the Supremes, they came out, and a lot of the men groups I like, OJs and that stuff. We're singing about love. Or breaking up, or he wasn't no good, no how, and how you got rid of him kind of songs. Yeah.
Okay, just relationships all together, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell me, who was your biggest influence growing up?
I had different influences according to the year, my age. Overall, there were 2 ladies that one lived next door to me and one lived across the street from me. Miss Clark lived next door and Miss Louise lived across the street. And they were the most consistent, loving people that one of the people in my life. They never turned on me, never had a negative word or scolding. They were always true to who they were in dealing with me. And I really, really, to this day, value that type of authentic people.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
And I also had school teachers that I really, really were in my corner and always encouraged me to They always knew I did my best. They didn't need to be telling me to do my best. They just continued to celebrate the fact that I always did my best.
Mm-hmm. And encourage you. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Affirm. They affirmed me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As you were coming along, what was the most significant technology through your lifetime?
Record player.
The record player? Okay.
That's one that mattered to me.
Uh-huh.
And the telephone, I guess. Yeah.
Because I know you don't use technology that's out today, so. And
I probably wouldn't have used it then either.
No, okay.
I just wrote something just tonight about the changing of the world and stuff, and I called it, I entitled it, Houston, We Have a Problem. And it is the essence of what I wrote tonight. I used to work in an inner city school. It was in the West End in Cincinnati. They are building a gigantic soccer stadium. And a lot of that neighborhood that I knew and my students went to and stuff is no longer there. It's been transformed. And I made the analogy that going there, and it made me cry because I was like I had entered an alien land. It was not familiar. Things that landmarks. It was a very large African-American church, very large, beautiful church. Large in the sense that it was a very nice older structure, and the church sold and were forced into basically selling the church because of this soccer stadium and all the space that they needed and took over. And so, wow. Being a dinosaur, and I love being a dinosaur. I shared this with you before. I love being the century that made sense to me because this world is so chaotic and it is designed for you to chase the world. And I know that I am in this world, but I am not of this world. Right. And technology is of this world. And it isn't that I'm ignorant of it. I understand technology very well. Some people talk to me and pat me on the head like I'm stupid, but I really do understand it. I just choose not to be a part of it. And minimally. You can't in 21st century be completely void of it, but as little as possible I interface with. So.
All right. Well, what's some advice you would like to pass on to the Masseys coming along?
Always do your best. Best does not mean excellent. Best does not mean perfection, but best does mean excellence, and there is a difference. Perfection is a snapshot. You may hit 100 on a test or 100 or whatever it may be, perfect. But that's just one single picture for that single moment. Excellence is a movie. Excellence, it has a beginning, it has a middle, and of course we all have a date and it'll have an end. So strive for excellence. Do your best. And don't lie to yourself. If you choose not to do your best, say, I ain't doing my best, and be honest. Don't blow smoke up your own pants leg. You'll set your own leg on fire. So. Right.
Okay, that's some great advice. Great advice. And my last question for you, what does being a Massey mean to you?
Daddy always taught us that being a Massey E-Y. He always stressed the spelling of our name. He said, there's a lot of Massey, but they I-E. They ain't the real Massey. Massey's is M-A-S-S-E-Y. Daddy was always very proud of our last name. Always. And he ingrained that in us. That you know, and so I take pride in knowing that my name means something, and that my name, my maiden name, meant so much to Daddy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And the last thing we go over is usually for you to tell us about your immediate family. Did you get married? Did you have children? Can you tell us about your family?
Okay. I graduated from Kentucky State. It was called college then. It's called university now in Frankfort, Kentucky. And I got married the evening of the same day that I graduated from college. I got married that later than that, early evening. And the reason was because I had finished my graduation requirements in January. So I left Kentucky State and went to Dayton, Ohio, and started my first job as a social worker at the welfare department in Dayton, Montgomery County in Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Didn't have any leave time. Didn't have a way to organize and have a wedding in Petersburg because I had no time. I would have, if I were granted the time, it would have been leave without pay, and that was not going to fly. Getting married, so family was coming for my graduation, so I decided to have the wedding where everybody that really could come family-wise would be at my graduation, and that's where I got married. And I married James Walter Thomas III, and, you know, it started out well. It didn't end well. But it was I divorced after nearly almost 27 years of marriage, and we had 2 children. My oldest is Shanta Denise, and she was born on September 24th, 1974. She was born on my ex-husband's mother's birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And my son, Eric, E-R-I-K, Bernard, he was born on September the 12th in 1978. And both of my kids my due date were identical for both of my kids. And my daughter didn't believe me, and I had the documentation from way back that I kept. And sure enough, when I was pregnant with her, my due date was September the 12th. She was 12 days late for my due date. Her brother was born right on their due date, or his due date. And she was so elated that she was late because she did not want to share her birthday with her, would not have wanted to have shared her birthday with her brother, because you know that we would have had the parties eventually together. So, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And Shanta is an independent psychological counselor, and my son is in management with a community action agency that work with people who are in need of services in the community. So both of my kids are in professions that deal with helping others.
Wow, that's awesome. That is
now,
awesome.
My daughter Shanta, and I want to give you a little tidbit. My daughter Shanta, when she was in high school, had told me one time, she said, "Mommy, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up." but I know I don't want to be a social worker.
Okay.
Okay. I don't want to be what you are, basically, is what she told me, because I was a social worker. And then she took a class in psychology in high school. And all of that prediction and about how she would never go into social work field or whatever. She exactly the route she took, and she ended up getting into the psychology counseling side of service delivery to people.
Wow. She ended up following in your footsteps.
Well, she ended up realizing that she had a gift of caring about others, and she pursued her heart and her spirit. Okay. And I knew I was going to be a social worker before the age of 12. I knew I was going to go into social work, something that helped others. Yeah.
Now, do they have children? So you have grandchildren?
Yes, I have 4 granddaughters. Shanta has a daughter that will be turning 12 this year. And Eric has 3 daughters. My oldest daughter, Erica, Shanta's daughter name is Nayla. My oldest granddaughter for my son, Erica, named after him. She'll be 14. Let me get the dates right, girl, because she'll be turning 15. Oh, my gosh, this year. And then my son remarried, and he has a daughter, Bella, from his second wife's daughter. And then they have a daughter together, and it's Aubrey. And Aubrey will be turning 4 in September, and Bella turned, she turned 9 this year, her birthday.
Oh, wow. Beautiful family. Beautiful.
Yeah. Very, very. And I enjoy being Granny. And that's my name. And I named me. I did not want anything to sound like I'm supposed to be responsible for raising you. I ain't want no grandma, and I ain't want nothing to have mother in it. I know.
Okay. That's pretty I picked a name that sounds not necessarily that I'm supposed to be responsible in any way, but I enjoy having them, and they enjoy coming to Granny's house. And we have Granny Day. They come over and we play and just have fun. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Was there anything else you wanted to leave with the family?
Just honor the truth. Just honor truth and not be afraid of speaking truth would be my word. Because in this world, a lie seems to take people a long way, but all it does is circle you back to the truth.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dee. I really appreciate you coming on with us, and I hope to be able to see you soon, and once this COVID clears up, and be able to come to the reunion together, and we can meet one another again.
Oh, that would be fun. That would be great. And thank you so much for the opportunity. Had I not been a social worker, I would have been a black Carol Burnett comedian. I love laughter. Laughter has always sustained me, but segregation made me not be able to go into the field of comedy, and they didn't pay enough. So I became a social worker.
And said, okay. Oh, well, it's so good talking to you, Dee. Hold on 1 second for me, okay?
All righty.